viewers, to the BrownCast 20.
Hello viewers, and welcome to the 2015 BrownCast 20. It is here we recount the 20 must-see films of the past year. In the interest of time, we've limited the list to 20, so this list will not include every good movie from the past year, just the 20 we thought deserved the most recognition. A small disclaimer: there'll be a few titles suspiciously missing from this list, as they have not yet come to this area. Enjoy the BrownCast 20.
What will happen to me if I fail your test?
Ex Machina was this year's Snowpiercer. Like Snowpiercer, Ex Machina takes full use of its clever premise to drive a compelling story despite its low budget. While the setup is simple and the cast is small, Ex Machina uses the believable and practical nature of its narrative to tackle huge subjects such as captivity, manipulation, and what it means to be human.
Nowhere else to go. This is your home now.
Sometimes, something old can be something new again. Crimson Peak uses older-style horror to tell an engaging story with amazing visuals. The design of this film is incredible, from the sets, costumes, to even the specters themselves. It abandons jump scares, cartoonish gore, or the pretense of reality, i.e. found footage movies. If you have grown tired of the genre seemingly stuck on repeat, then this one's for you.
Beast of No Nation was, for me, like being lost in the woods. Our young protagonist is sent running for his life into the darkness of the jungle forest. There he finds something just as lethal and 1,000 times more terrifying. Director Cary Fukunaga brings us closer to a world we don't like to think about, and at the same time keeps us in the dark, making us just as lost as the child we follow.
Pixar has always been known for a higher standard in family films, and Inside Out hits that mark. The concept, while done before, is fleshed out in a way few versions have done with this idea. The world of our minds is colorful and visually interesting. For me, the humor was what turned this movie onto the list. The idea is used to parody our own experiences and feelings.
You're gonna love it. What? The world.
Room was a film that I heavily underestimated. It is an especially big risk to place the focus of your film on such a young child. Room is about much more than a woman and her child being held captive. There are many layers to the film, and one would argue the most prevalent is the little boy's decision to grow up and enter a world full of infinite possibilities.
Is Ant-Man better than the Avengers? Probably not. But what made Ant-Man get a spot on the list is that it isn't the Avengers. Rather than repeat the mistakes of some of the more forgettable superhero films in recent years, Ant-Man puts the time and effort into showing us a superhero film with a new angle to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
The only problem that Danny Boyle and Aaron Sorkin's Steve Jobs had is that it came out too late. The influx of media about Jobs' life since his death has worn down the movie-going public and caused the best one of these to fail. What this film managed to do that none of the others did was capture a sense of who the man was on a human level, exploring his role in the technological revolution and the complicated nature of his closest relationships.
Simplicity of a film can be its greatest weapon. The Good Dinosaur has a lot of heart and a wonderful story. It's the time-old tale of a boy and his dog in the American Southwest turned on its head. With astounding visuals and environments, the work done in this film will be something to be admired for years to come.
Home is home.
How do we determine what path our life should take? How do we decipher through things like family, culture, tradition, and love? What set Brooklyn apart from other period dramas this year was its heart. Brooklyn is more than just a pretty face. The film has a lot of important things to say and makes for a romantic love story.
This is how I end.
Is it possible that he's still alive?
Ridley Scott is one of the greatest directors out there. If you need any more proof of this, then look no further than The Martian. This tells the tale of a man stranded but not helpless. It's the story of survival and overcoming great odds. With a great performance by Matt Damon to boot, you will be hooked from start to finish.
Yes.
Oh, that's nearly 10 years ago.
Well, it's wonderful to have you back in the neighborhood, son.
Director Scott Cooper has a talent for delivering a dark, heavy, and dramatic aesthetic. Black Mass is his most focused and compelling film yet. As human beings, we often bend our own logical and moral standards by telling ourselves it's for the greater good, but often we are, in reality, only acting to further our own interest. Black Mass makes the list because it chooses to be something different than a typical biopic, instead focusing on a more interesting theme about making a deal with the devil.
Well, they say the Appalachian Trail's like life. You don't know what's going to happen next, but you give it your best shot.
Talk about great casting. Robert Redford and Nick Nolte come together in this great comedy. For me, it is always great to see a comedy that tries to be smart. The humor is witty and well written, and our two leads have a great time. Not to mention some gorgeous landscapes that fill the interim between comedic set pieces.
Providing a measure of order that we could control.
I'm gonna tell everyone what you did.
That would be a major mistake.
Sicario is an incredibly well-made film. Canadian director Denis Villeneuve is a director that has been really breaking out the past couple of years. This is because of his mastery of building suspense and tension. Sicario, as a film, is pretty much about suspense and tension. In the war on drugs at the Mexican border, there is a lot of uncertainty. In Sicario, this uncertainty is felt by the audience as well as the characters, making Sicario one of the most suspenseful movies of 2015.
In this day and age, we see many attempts from Hollywood to reboot their most popular franchises from days past. Mad Max Fury Road is the new gold standard that all future reboots should look to. The action is great, the music and sound rock, and I've never been more pumped after a movie this year. In a market of action films being dominated by comic book movies, this came as a wonderful breath of fresh air.
Worst of times.
It's so much harder than I thought it would be.
It was life.
Everyone, at some point in their life, must contemplate the concept of death. Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl is a film about three teenagers who are forced to confront the very adult subject of death. The film breaks the mold of the typical teen dramatic comedy. Death is an eventuality we have to accept, even when we are not experiencing it ourselves. But is death final? Usually a story about teenagers is not bold enough to ask such profound questions. This is what makes Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl one of the best movies of the year.
And his dog.
Hello? She said hello!
The peanut.
With so many animated films on my list this year, you might wonder if I have a bias towards them. I won't pretend that I don't have a soft spot, but each one did something special. The Peanuts movie should be praised for what it managed to accomplish. The creators of this film managed to adapt both the artistic style and tone of the past works of this franchise, while still using the computer-generated tools of the industry today. And it manages to keep hold of the fun stories with relatable messages for all ages.
They knew, and they let it happen. It could have been you. It could have been me. It could have been any of us.
Who is responsible when children are preyed upon by figures of moral authority? Is it just the perpetrators? When a community turns a blind eye to victims of injustice, can the blame be put on any one person or entity? And, given these questions, what is the role of the press in combating the evils of our social institutions? I can't name another film this year as ambitious as Spotlight. A perfectly paced procedural, Spotlight stays focused on the investigation at hand, but still manages to be interwoven with multiple layers and themes. This is filmmaking at its finest and easily one of the best films of the year.
Music movies tend to follow similar trends. This we all know. For Straight Outta Compton, we see the story of a group of friends. What this film does best is making the focus about the men in this rap group and their rise and fall. The time frame, music genre, world, and history isn't sugar-coated or dismissed either. The world these men came from is just as important as the role they played in the rap music genre. All this comes together in a film that's not worth missing.
The Hateful Eight seems like a film with not a lot going on. In fact, if it wasn't a Quentin Tarantino film, I doubt anyone would be very interested in it from the marketing alone. But The Hateful Eight represents a return for this great writer and director to its glorious low-budget roots. My full review of The Hateful Eight will be coming soon, but I can confidently say that The Hateful Eight is classic Tarantino working completely within his element to deliver an extremely entertaining film.
What can I say? I have been and will always be a die-hard Star Wars fan. But that is not the only reason for The Force Awakens to be on this list. This is a great film, not just a great Star Wars film. It is a positive return to something familiar, despite claims it's a copy of A New Hope, which it isn't. Not entirely. This film took what we wanted from Star Wars and gave us something both familiar and new as a first step to a whole new universe of films.